Yes, the answer is always Miata. Did you clean your room?
Miata?
Why did you get a bad grade on your math test?
Miata?
You spent $4,000 on skincare supplements?
Miata? And have you mowed the grass?
Miata?
And of course, if you truly love the act of driving, which car should you buy? Obviously, Miata. What's going on, everyone? Jax here, and today I'm back with the 2021 Mazda Miata for a hot take this time. If you want to see the full review, link down in the description. But we've got the 2021 Mazda Miata in Grand Touring trim today. I've already reviewed the Miata Club with the Brembo, BBS, and Recaro seat package, which is kind of like the ultimate expression of the Mazda Miata when you really think about it. When I first laid hands on that Miata, I had never driven one of this generation before, and it was just as joyous and effervescent, if that makes sense, as you would expect the Miata to be. When Mazda dropped off this Grand Touring trim in what I consider to be the absolutely essential Soul Red Crystal Metallic, or whatever they call it, seriously, is anyone doing the color red better than Mazda right now? Because this car is stunning in this color. My immediate thought was, does the Miata retain all of its brilliance when it's not fully maxed out for performance duty and it's in more of a livable trim? The short answer is yes. This Grand Touring trim has the exact same 181 horsepower, 151 pound-feet of torque, 4-cylinder engine. It has the same utterly delightful 6-speed manual, which just might be the best manual transmission currently in existence right now. And even though it's a Grand Touring model, it still has the same waifish 2,400 pound curb weight. The steering is perfectly weighted, and the thin steering wheel rim kind of matches the sort of delicacy and precision of the Mazda's handling. It's kind of counterintuitive, where a lot of automakers are putting big, fat, meaty rims in their sporty models. BMW. The Mazda Miata goes the opposite route with this sort of delicacy in the steering wheel that's almost kind of refreshing, but it matches the car. It just so perfectly matches the car. The Bilstein dampers and the limited slip differential keep things kind of a lot more planted than you would expect them to be, considering the sort of lively handling of the Miata overall. That's not to say that it's skittish or that it like wanders around or anything, but this is a very small car with a very small wheelbase, and it's very lightweight, and it kind of darts around. It almost glides over the surface of the road, kind of like those little bugs, what were they called, like water skeeter things that kind of did this, whatever you call it. That's how the Miata is on the tarmac. It just sort of darts all over the place. But it's also very confidence-inspiring. You don't feel like you're gonna get bounced off the road. It almost oddly seems to hold its line like the tires are 3 times the size they are. They're about 34 millimeters wide, or at least they seem to be, because they're like that big. And yet, somehow it grips. Oh, hey. Quick interruption here about the way that the Grand Touring model handles, because, fun fact, I am 6.5 feet tall. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna show you what I look like sitting in the car right now. yeah, it's a tough fit for me. In fact, I pretty much have to have the roof down to find any sort of reasonable driving position, because otherwise my hair is just constantly on the headliner. So anyway, when I put my camera on the windshield using my suction cup mount, you couldn't really see me very well because I couldn't get the camera actually physically far enough away. I tried a GoPro, but the problem with that is that the rear view mirror and some other stuff is sort of like in the way of the shot. That's how small the Miata is, especially when you're as big as I am. So here we are at the park to go over it sort of face to face. The Miata pretty much handles exactly as you would expect it to handle. It rides a little stiffly, and it does have a little bit of a, we'll say, jittery ride. I think the dampers are actually pretty compliant, but it's fairly stiff. And there is some surprising body roll. You never feel like the car can't handle the corner. It's more like the body roll lets you know where you're at in sort of the car's handling envelope. It's been a well-documented sort of characteristic of the way the Miata handles. I took it down the handling road, and it rode surprisingly well considering how poor the pavement is in some areas. In fact, when it hit the big bump, the dampers absorb it way better than a car this size you would ever think could handle a bump like that. In short, could you take the Miata on like a longer trip? Like pack your spouse into it, fill the trunk, which is considerably big, I'll show you that too, and go for kind of like a mountain drive adventure, maybe an overnight trip or something like that? Absolutely you could. It would be a little stiff, but definitely not too stiff for like longer journeys. I think if anything is gonna limit you in terms of the Miata's handling, it's gonna be your physical size in the car. You really could not be any bigger than me and still operate the clutch and shifter and steering wheel without having to saw a limb off, we'll put it that way. That said, if you're looking to enjoy your Mazda Miata and you don't necessarily plan on pushing it to its ragged edge to the 10/10ths limits, then does the Grand Touring trim give you enough of the Miata experience without having to step up to the club model? Or what are you losing out by not stepping up to the club model, or technically stepping down to the club model, because the club model starts below the Grand Touring model, but I'm sort of mentally adding in all of the performance upgrades that I had on the club model. That was a long roundabout way to say, when you max out the club model, it's more expensive than this car by about $2,500. So is the Grand Touring trim worth it? Well, sort of. First of all, don't get too excited by the term Grand Touring here. Unlike other Mazdas in this trim, the interior of the Mazda Miata in Grand Touring is easily kind of the worst part of the Miata experience. That's not saying it's necessarily bad. It's just not providing you a whole lot of real luxury for your 33 grand. And if you're a Mazda sort of fan like I am, that's in comparison to some of the most stunning interiors of a mainstream brand that you can buy today. So it's not that the Miata is bad, it's just that Mazda's other interiors are that good. The materials are just okay. There's a lot of hard plastic in this car, especially considering its $33,000 price tag. And even though it has nearly all of Mazda's sort of safety and infotainment features, most of them I think, they're running through a screen about the size of an apricot with the resolution of a potato, especially the backup camera. So it's like a potato cot. You basically have a potato cot for a screen.
That doesn't make sense.
And like the backup camera is like a rotting grape or something. It's laughably bad by today's standards. But should this matter to you? Well, no, not really. In fact, I would argue that most people who appreciate the Miata's handling brilliance would be willing to make that trade-off for the money. In fact, I think Mazda's kind of betting that they'd be willing to make that trade-off for the money. And all the touch points that matter feel fine. You're just not really getting much grand in your Grand Touring trim, I guess is my point. I wonder, in the sort of Miata hierarchy of models, is the Grand Touring trim worth it? Which means the question I'm asking is, should you buy a Mazda Miata in Grand Touring trim? No. Seriously, no. You shouldn't. You should go watch my review of the Miata Club with all of the handling upgrades. Then you should like it and ring the bell because you're so enthralled by it that you want to see more. And then after you've done all those things, you should go buy that one. In this color, of course, obviously. I'm not saying I like the gray roof. I'd probably stick with the black roof. I don't have anything against the gray roof. It's interesting, but to me it looks kind of like one with a black roof that somebody left out in the weather and it got old or something, even though that would probably not happen. I'm just saying, that's what I thought when I saw it. The club trim just looks fantastic with its black accents, BBS wheels, and really cool looking Recaro seats. And I think if you're gonna get a Miata, then go all in. Get the full Miata. See, since this Grand Touring model rides kind of stiffly, like I said, it doesn't feel like it's providing much more comfort or sort of compliance than the club model maxed out with performance options. So I don't think you'll be bothered all that much that the club rides a little bit more stiffly than the Grand Touring. And the Grand Touring certainly isn't providing you with an enhanced level of luxury that would cause you to turn your nose up at the club. If anything, the sort of fabric Recaros look cooler than these sort of baseball stitched leather on these seats, so, you know, there's that. See, in my mind, the club trim, it is Miata. It's an unfiltered connection between man, machine, and the tarmac beneath them both. And that's exactly what has made the Miata special for the past 30 years. If you're looking for more comfort and convenience in your convertible, then go buy a used Toyota Solara. It's got a bigger trunk anyway, for all the knickknacks that you could pick up from the antique store. But if you're looking for the purest driving experience from a mainstream car that you can get today, the answer is invariably Miata. Guys, thanks so much for watching this hot take on the Mazda Miata Grand Touring trim. Don't get me wrong, the Grand Touring trim is certainly perfectly fine, but me being just sort of that enthusiast dad, if you were going to buy this car, and it is very likely not your only car, I mean, I don't know how it would be your only car, you probably want to have at least the option of really thrashing it at the very maximum of what a Miata could do, or at least take comfort in the fact that you could if you were so inclined. I mean, really, this is why people buy these sort of absurd engines and power and performance in M cars and AMG cars and RS Audis. I mean, honestly, it's why people buy maxed out Corvettes and things like that. They never actually use them. They just take them to car shows and rub them with a 1970s cloth baby diaper. I know, I'm poking fun at my own kind, but it's true, it's true. Look, we should all just be thankful that cars like the Miata still exist. And we should be thankful that Mazda is carrying the torch for this simple, little, joyous roadster with a peppy 4-cylinder engine and a slick 6-speed manual. And if you're even the slightest bit interested in a car like the Miata, I strongly encourage you to go drive one. You won't be disappointed. There's nothing else like it. Thanks so much for watching. Please consider liking, please consider subscribing, please consider ringing the bell for notifications. And until next time, drive safe, ride safe, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace. How is it windy today? It's gotta be this hill. It's been no wind all day. None. Literally perfection. And then I step outside to film, boom, 5 knot breeze from the southwest. I don't know what a knot is. Just sounded cool. And today, perfectly timed car door closing. Rev that 4-cylinder. I honestly think that it's like I press play and then the wind starts. There's some kind of like weird connection there, some kind of cosmic punishment. What have I done wrong today? How have I wronged you, Mother Nature? Try to be your friend, recycle and everything. And if you've never driven a Miata and you're even this, that just sounds awful. My God, the transmission's gonna fall out. Please go away. The minute he accelerates, it's gonna fall apart. Ugh. Oh my gosh. It's idiot day at the park. Oh, let's wait for this person to go by. See if they're gonna rev their engine as they leave a public park. Crank up your 1987 Buick right at the time I hit record. Give it a second here.
You were supposed to ask me a question, weren't you?
Where are you gonna go?
Oh, I thought you were going to say it. You mow the grass while we're talking about this kind of things?
No, I don't want that at all. Don't ad-lib.
I'm a good ad-libber.
No, you're not. All right.
Yes, I am. That's
All
what
right.
I do in all my videos is ad-lib.
Go.